Hello, everyone. It is almost noon. I'm going to give everybody a minute to get in, um, and then we'll get started promptly at 12. Okay, so it is 12 o'clock on the dot, so we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Carrie Potter. I am an educational support coach with Family Matters Parent Training and Information Center. And I do want to say that Family Matters at this time is unable to offer CEUs for training participants, but certificates of attendance can be requested by contacting your trainer or Family Matters via email. I do have to say Family Matters is not a legal services agency. We cannot provide any legal advice or legal representation. So any information that you receive from Family Matters at any time or during this presentation is not intended as legal advice and should not be used as a substitution for legal advice. We also have to let you know that the contents of this PowerPoint were developed under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. However, those contents do not necessarily represent the policy of the U.S. Department of Education, and you should not assume endorsement by the federal government. So today, I just want to welcome you and thank you for taking time out of your day. Today, our session is going to focus on advocating for accommodations in the areas of school, work, and daily life. This is a 30-minute message for students, parents, and professionals. So since it's a 30-minute message, we have a decent amount of information to cover, so we won't have time to take questions. But if you do have questions after today's presentation, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us, call us. You can reach out through our website as well. There's methods that way to email us and contact us. So definitely, let us know if you have questions following today's presentation. So our goal is to empower students, parents, and professionals and anyone listening by providing you with the knowledge and actionable strategies that you need to effectively advocate for accommodations, ensuring success and inclusion across school, work, and everyday life settings. It's important, we hope that you walk away understanding, the different protections. We'll be discussing the key legal frameworks, such as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Apologize, my camera for some reason is messing up. Okay, so we're also going to hope that you walk away learning how to request accommodations and then explore real life examples and resources. We hope to bring these concepts to life and share. We're going to share real world scenarios that you can take away with you. Our goal is to empower you with tools and confidence to advocate effectively. And, by the end of the session, you'll know more about navigating effectively and navigating the accommodation process in various settings while considering individuals' goals, strengths, needs, and throughout the stages of life. So we want to talk about what are accommodations. You may be familiar with accommodations. For somebody newer to the situation, you may not. Accommodations are adjustments designed to remove barriers for individuals with disabilities, allowing them to perform tasks, access environments, or participate fully in activities. These are not about changing standards or expectations, but rather providing equitable access. So accommodations can look different depending on an individual's needs and the setting. For instance, a high school student who becomes easily distracted during exams may use noise canceling headphones to block out background noise and maintain focus, allowing them to perform to their full potential. So there are some examples listed on the screen that might be helpful. We've kind of covered that, like a high school student using noise canceling headphones is going to help them possibly stay focus during exams, or an adult employee with ADHD might use time management apps to help stay organized at work. So those are examples of accommodations. Other examples, flexible schedules, using assistive technology, extended time on tests can all be examples of accommodations. So we want to talk about what are the legal protections. Students who need accommodations in educational settings are protected under two key laws, and those are the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So IDEA ensures that eligible students receive an IEP, or an individualized education program with tailored supports, while Section 504 guarantees that students with disabilities have equal access to education and are not discriminated against. In the workplace, there is the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, and it provides robust protections. So the ADA requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations that enable employees with disabilities to perform their job duties, as long as these accommodations don't cause undue hardship for the employer. Now, when you're thinking about daily life, in daily life, individuals with disabilities are supported by the Fair Housing Act, or FHA, and the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the FHA, or Fair Housing Act, ensures access to housing by prohibiting discrimination and requiring accommodations such as service animals or accessible modifications. The ADA further supports accessibility in the public spaces, transportation, and communication to ensure full participation in community life. So there's an example on the screen that we want to consider. So let's consider the story of a college student who's struggling to managing a heavy workload due to a learning disability. And by using protections under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the student is able to secure accommodations such as extended deadlines for assignments and exams. These accommodations ensure that they can fully demonstrate their knowledge and abilities without being held back by their disability. So by having the support system in place during their education, the student not only succeeds academically, but also builds self-advocacy skills. These skills, coupled with the confidence gained from successfully navigating college, pave the way for long-term success in their chosen career. So that is one example of legal protections and how these systems work and assist people with different types of disabilities in different areas of life. So school is one place where a student can request accommodations. The first step is to identify a need. So when you want to ask for an accommodation at school, you want to identify a need. The first step is going to be understanding what specific challenges or barriers exist and what accommodations would address those. For example, does the individual need more time for tasks? Do they need assistive technology or a modified schedule? Identifying these needs is the foundation for a successful request. So you have to look at kind of what barriers is that student facing. Then you can request a meeting. So formally requesting a meeting to discuss accommodations would be the next step. In schools, this might mean asking for a 504 plan meeting or an IEP meeting. And then in the workplace, it could involve reaching out to a supervisor or a human resources personnel. In community settings, you might contact a service provider or an organization representative to discuss an accommodations request. The next step, or third step, would be to provide documentation if required. So be prepared to share relevant documentation, such as a diagnosis or an evaluation, if it's needed, just to justify the request that you're making. This step would just ensure that the decision makers understand the nature of the disability and how the accommodation would help that individual. So a tip, it's always important to use clear, respectful communication when asking for accommodations. You want to approach the conversation with clarity and respect, clarify the needs, provide examples when possible, and remain open to collaboration. It's really important to work together. Advocacy is about finding solutions together, not just making demands upon one another. So start by understanding your needs. If you're an individual with a disability who may need accommodations, it's important to understand your needs. Um, and there are different tools that can help with that if you want to reach out to our office. So let's look at an example. Again, imagine a middle school student who struggles with maintaining focus in a busy classroom environment. Recognizing this challenge, the student advocates for preferential seating near the front of the room to reduce distractions. With the support of their parent and teachers, the request is granted, allowing the student to engage more effectively in lessons. And this experience not only improves their academic performance, but also helps them develop critical self-advocacy skills, such as identifying their needs, articulating them clearly, and working collaboratively with adults. That student is taking ownership. They're, recognizing, building those self-advocacy skills, recognizing their need, speaking to others about that need, making that request, and learning some really important life skills. These skills that they've learned are really going to serve them well in high school and later in life, whether advocating for accommodations in a college setting, a workplace, or in other areas of daily life. Again, the key to successful advocacy is clear and respectful communication. The student should explain their needs in a straightforward and calm manner. Again, we don't want to be aggressive. The student can provide reasons why the accommodation will help, and this approach really fosters collaboration and ensures that student's voice is heard, but they're also learning to work together as a team. So I think it's important to cover examples of accommodations at school. So let's talk about the ones listed on the slide. So preferential seating. This accommodation involves seating a student in a specific location within the classroom to minimize distractions and maximize focus and learning. So for example, a student might sit near the teacher to receive additional guidance, or they may sit away from high traffic areas to reduce sensory input. So these are examples of preferential seating. Modified assignments are going to adjust the workload or complexity of tasks to align with the student's abilities. So this can include reducing the number of questions or allowing for alternative formats or even extending deadlines to ensure that student can fully demonstrate their knowledge. There may be a use of a scribe or a reader. For students who struggle with writing or reading due to a disability, a scribe can write down their responses, or a reader can assist by reading instructions, or read a test questions out loud. This ensures that they can focus on demonstrating their understanding rather than being hindered by their disability. So that's another example of an accommodation that can take place at school. This is not an all-inclusive list by any means. You can find a lot of great resources on school accommodations on places like understood.org and other websites like that. Another option or accommodation that may be considered or implemented would be frequent breaks. So some students benefit from frequent breaks to help manage fatigue or anxiety or attention challenges. So these breaks provide an opportunity to rest and return to task more effectively, and it's supporting their engagement and success throughout the day. So accommodations, again, I think we've mentioned it, should be tailored to the specific needs of the person. And you want to consider how each accommodation, fits into their life, how it's assisting them. And you want to make sure that they're meaningful. So an example would be a high school senior with a learning disability using a graphic organizer for essay writing, preparing for independent learning in college, things like that. So those are just some examples for, high school or seniors preparing for life after high school. They have goals of going to college, things like that. They're looking at what accommodations are helpful, learning what their needs are, what they could ask for in college potentially. Also important to understand how to ask for accommodations at work. So start by reviewing your job description. If you have a job description, it can be helpful to look at that, really understand what your job is, so you can understand the core responsibilities and requirements of your job. This would help a person identify specific areas where accommodations might be necessary to perform their role effectively. You could document your needs. So next, take time to document your challenges and the accommodations that you believe would address those challenges. And be specific about how your disability impacts um, your ability to meet job expectations and how certain adjustments could improve your work performance or your job performance. And then the next step after you've done these first two steps would be to speak to your supervisor or the human resources department to discuss your accommodation request. You want to be professional and frame the conversation as a collaborative effort to support your success in your role at work. You can also suggest solutions, come prepared with potential solutions. So, for example, if you need flexible scheduling, suggest this, you can suggest this specific, adjustments and explain how those would help you meet your job expectations. Offering practical and reasonable ideas shows initiative, and it can help create productive dialogue. Really give the employer, HR, department ideas of kind of what your expectations or your ideas for these accommodations would mean. So, a tip would be to approach the conversation with confidence and clarity. Emphasize that the accommodations you're requesting are reasonable and aimed at enabling you to contribute effectively at the workplace. An example would be a young adult transitioning from college to work, asking for flexible work hours to manage a chronic health condition. Okay, so some examples of workplace accommodations would be maybe adjustable workstations, flexible hours, remote working options, or assistive technology. So flexible hours, flexible work schedules can allow employees to adjust their start and end times to accommodate personal needs such as medical appointments, um, or energy management for chronic health conditions, things like that. Remote work options, so for employees who may face like mobility challenges or sensitivities or difficulty commuting, remote work options may provide an environment where they can work more comfortably and effectively. So those are, again, something we're seeing more widely used. Remote work options are more common than they were even just a few years back. They really heightened during the pandemic. We're seeing more and more people work remotely. So this is a more common probably option in employment. Assistive technology is another workplace accommodation. So examples may be screen readers for individuals with vision impairments or visual impairments, voice recognition software for those who have difficulty typing. There can be noise canceling headphones to help employees who may have ADHD or sensory sensitivities that help them stay focused. An example would be like an employee with low vision issues using screen magnification software, ensuring continued success as their job responsibilities grow. Okay, so we want to move on to accommodations in daily life. Some examples would be accessible transportation, home modifications like ramps or grab bars, communication aids. So accessible transportation accommodations ensure individuals with disabilities can travel safely and independently. So if you're somebody who needs some accessible transportation, you may want to check in with organizations in your community, figure out what options are available for you in your community to transport to and from work. Think about where you live, where you work, things like that. Figure out what hours they run, and just really look at what options are available to you. Home modifications create safer and more accessible living environments for students with disabilities. Ramps can replace stairs to allow easy access for someone who uses a wheelchair, while grab bars and bathrooms can really provide additional support for individuals with limited mobility. I will say the Illinois Assistive Technology Program is a wealth of resource for different types of assistive technology, home devices or accommodations and supports, home modifications, communication or hearing aids, things like that. They have a wealth of information and very knowledgeable staff. So you can always look them up and check out, what resources they have. You can tour their facility, set up a tour sometime if you're looking for specific help as an individual with a disability or as a caregiver, things like that. So can't express enough how helpful they can be in navigating this process. Um, Communication aids can support individuals with speech, hearing, or cognitive disabilities in expressing themselves or interacting with others. Examples would be speech to text devices, speech generating apps, hearing aids, or even picture board communication for people who are non speaking or nonverbal. So an example would be a young adult with mobility challenges using the rideshare app equipped with accessibility features such as a accessible vehicle option to travel independently. So the accommodation would allow them to attend college classes on time, to travel and participate in social events and manage errands and things like that independently without relying on others. So I think it's important to think about, individuals with disabilities can definitely advocate for themselves. Many have very strong self advocacy skills and are very capable. Sometimes we're in positions where we can advocate for others. So, some tips for parents and professionals. The first step in advocating for someone else is to have a clear understanding of that person's unique needs, their strengths, their challenges. You really want to take time to listen and observe, and when appropriate, involve that individual in discussions about what accommodations or supports would be best to meet their needs and their goals, help them reach their goals. So, for example, if you're advocating for a student, you want to understand how their disability impacts their learning or behavior and identifies the specific supports that would help them succeed. As a parent, I'm a parent of an adult with a disability. It's very important for me to listen to my child. She's a very strong self advocate. She will seek me out if she needs help, but I don't want to make assumptions of what support she needs because that has been done before, whether by myself. I mean, I'm a parent, I'm going to jump in sometimes, but I want to be mindful of what are her goals, what supports does she need to reach those goals, and try to, talk to her about let me know when you need this help or know what way to approach her if I think, hey, I see this going on, how can we accommodate you, what resources can we pull in, who could help you, are you okay with me helping you in this situation to advocate. um, it's important to communicate respectfully when advocating. Approach the conversation with both respect and confidence. Again, we've said that throughout this presentation. Clearly explain why an accommodation or support is necessary. Use specific examples again. We've heard that throughout. Um, Follow up with written documentation. So if there's a meeting, an IEP meeting, something like that, Section 504 meeting, follow up in writing, document the conversation, discussion had, and agreements in writing, things like that. Um, so an example would be a parent helping their child advocate for visual schedules in school, um, advocating for fostering independence and self-determination. Providing accommodations, we want to focus on teachers and employers now. So as a teacher or an employer, it's important to be open to request. You can create an inclusive environment, and that starts with willingness to listen and understand the needs of the individual. An individual may come to you with a request. May have another idea to kind of counteract. If you think that idea that they have for a request, their specific request may not work, you could, discuss and collaborate and find solutions, um, and just ensure that that environment is inclusive and accommodating to meet different needs. An example would be a teacher implementing a peer mentoring program to support students with disabilities and building a supportive classroom and community. So there are different steps you can take if you make a request for an accommodation for yourself or on behalf of somebody to assist somebody. There are situations where accommodations can be denied. So that doesn't mean it's the end of the road. There are steps that you can take to address the situation. So you can ask for clarification, understand why your request was denied. If you need to, you could provide additional documentation, offer more information to support your need. Maybe you didn't give enough information initially, and that would help move forward. You could request a meeting to discuss alternative accommodations or solutions. You could escalate the issue. If you feel like you've done everything you can, you could speak to somebody higher up, like a school principal or an HR manager, to discuss your issue or your request denial. You could also file a complaint. We always say, try to explore all other options before you get to that process, but you do have the option to use the formal complaint process through the Office for Civil Rights or, other places, depending on the different complaint. If it's an IEP complaint, a complaint, or if a denial is made for an IEP accommodation, that complaint process would be through the Illinois State Board of Education. If it's a Section 504 or other areas that might be under, to the Office for Civil Rights. A workplace, it would be the EEOC. So an example would be if a college student was denied note-taking support using university resources, they could file an appeal and secure their note taker for classes. So if your accommodations or your child's accommodations are not being applied, you can document observations, note specific instances where accommodations were not provided, communicate with teacher or other school staff, request clarification on how accommodations are being implemented. You could request an IEP or a Section 504 meeting. It's important to review that plan and look at how those accommodations are written in. Are they being, followed as they're written in the IEP or 504 plan? Address any inconsistencies. You can escalate concerns if you have a meeting and there's still concerns that those aren't being followed or being applied. Then you could escalate that concern and speak to the school principal or district administrator if the issue persists. If you're going up that chain of command and feel like you've exhausted all options, there is the option to file a formal complaint. You can contact the state education agency or Office for Civil Rights if necessary. So an example would be a parent notices their child's extended test time is not being honored and works with the school to ensure compliance, building advocacy skills for future transitions. A lot of times you can work through issues and you don't have to get to the complaint process, but those processes are there if you need them. So we wanted to go over some real life scenarios. So let's look at this first example would be a school example. The scenario would be a student with ADHD request extended time. So a high school student with ADHD struggles to complete tests within the standard time frame, often feeling rushed and overwhelmed. They're recognizing the impact on their performance and stress levels. The student with support from their parent requests extended time as an accommodation. And so steps taken were to request and collaborate. The student and their parents meet with the teacher to discuss the challenge. The teacher listens to their concerns, reviews the student's IEP or individualized education program or 504, depending on which they have, which includes the provision for extended test time. The teacher agrees to adjust the testing schedule to allow the student extra time during exams. And then the next step would be implementing during the next test. The teacher allows that student to take the exam in a quiet room with additional 50% more time than other peers. Monitoring progress after each test, the teacher monitors the student's performance, asks for feedback. They note improved completion rates, more accurate answers, and significant reduction in visible stress. So the outcome is there is improved performance, reduced stress for the student, and long-term impact. So the key takeaway, this scenario demonstrates the importance of open communication and collaboration and follow through when implementing accommodations. So by addressing the student's need, the teacher is fostering a supportive learning environment that allows the student to thrive academically and emotionally. And it also highlights how relatively small adjustments can have a profound impact on a student's success and well-being. We do have a real life example for work. We only have a couple minutes left, so I'll go over this one. So this one is an employee with a visual impairment requesting magnification software, screen magnification software. So a new employee with a visual impairment is hired for a role that involves extensive computer use, such as data analysis or report writing. They find it challenging to read small text and navigate the screen efficiently with standard settings, which impacts their speed and accuracy. So they recognize their need to support, and the employee requests screen magnification software as a workplace accommodation. So the employee informs their supervisor for HR or HR representative about their visual impairment and explains how it affects their ability to perform specific job tasks. They describe how screen magnification software would help them. And then there's a collaborative discussion. And then there's, after reasonable researching options, the employer purchases and installs a program that's implemented. The employee uses it. Once the software is implemented, the employer checks in regularly with that employee to ensure that it's working. So the outcome is enhanced productivity, improved job satisfaction, skill development, and a positive workplace climate. Those are just a couple of scenarios. Due to time constraints, it is 12:30. We will skip over the last one. There are some resources that we did want to provide you. Again, our website, Family Matters website, and then there are books that might be helpful, the ADA Handbook or Advocacy for Inclusion. The ADA National Network would be another resource for you. So final thoughts for today. Our message is accommodations empower individuals to reach their full potential. So, if you feel like you or someone you know are working with needs further accommodations, don't be afraid to start advocating today. You can, really look at what are the barriers that that person or you as a person with a disability are facing, and really think through what accommodations you may need. And then move forward with requesting those accommodations. If you need assistance with that, don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We'd be happy to help you. So that is the end of our presentation. If you have further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I will go ahead and stop the recording at this time.